Okay, I'll call to order the city council meeting for Tuesday, February 1st. I mentioned,
Yeah, I found it here.
question about that. The contract for the board of council, do we want to bump that up in the agenda or is it?
If you would,
Okay,
and the reason is we had a contract before. And we realized we probably should change it. And so this one provides the differences. And I think that that should be in place since we're using her resolutions on this. So that new agreement in place.
okay.
Seemed like just a lot of disclaimers.
Yeah,
That's what it looked like.
Where do you want to put it?
as long as it's before the two resolutions.
I guess that's,
So it can be after public comment, probably after public comment would be a good time.
Okay, so we're moving item 7 to become item 1. Okay,
Yes, kind of, yes.
at that, I need approval of the agenda.
so moved with the noted change.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yes.
We have a consent agenda for the,
I do have one. And, it has to do with the minutes for January 19th. It is the second page. And I didn't see anything in there about the fees that were, I asked the question, what would they be charging or have for fees? And they said between 6 and 7%. And I thought that should be in the paragraph 4th paragraph somewhere.
On page 2,
Yes. Yeah, there didn't seem to be any mention of that, and I think that's an extra amount of money that wasn't really mentioned. And it sounds like it's the fees for the company, Mercero, or,
Yes.
okay.
Which is in the contract that we'll be discussing next.
Correct, but these are the minutes
Yeah.
that should reflect what that, what the meeting was, what they discussed at the meeting. And I don't think when I looked at the numbers that what they're proposing in item number 1 now is the same thing. So that's another reason I wanted to correct it.
View the video. Did you review the audio or the video of that meeting?
I wrote it down in my notes.
Oh, okay, because I went back.
Because I asked and
I
said,
didn't see it, so it's,
yeah, I said, how much is it gonna cost on top of what we're borrowing? And they said between 6 and 7%. And being in real estate, that's my lingo, you know, so.
any other concerns on the minutes? Not, we need a motion.
we need to, I want to note the correction I made too on January 4th. I had, the vote was 3-2 and passed unanimously. So I forgot to remove that passed unanimously. So I did amend January 4th as well with that change.
Okay,
Thanks, Jenna.
move to approve the minutes of the meetings of January 4th, 11th, and the special meeting on the 19th with the noted changes.
Second,
all in favor?
Yes.
yes,
Yes. Good. That does that. We will move to our public comment. I have no people signed up for the comment, so I will ask if anybody on the Zoom list would like to raise their hand. And I'll count to 3. I don't see anybody happening. Okay, thank you all for attending, and we will move on to our first item, which is item 7, contract for bond. Bruce?
Yes, sir. We previously had a contract for bond counsel. It goes a while back and thought that it should be voted on by the council for the bond issues that we have coming up. So we put the revised contract here before you, the new contract.
One of the questions I had was that Wade Kuykendall had mentioned the issue of the banks requiring bonds to be insured. And you know which piece I'm talking about. Does that, is that something that is addressed here?
It's, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, but the insurance, those kind of things are all rolled into the debt service payment because they're required.
Yeah, all the financing costs will be rolled into the.
Right.
But like flood insurance and that sort of thing? Okay, that was what he was mentioning. I thought it was a good point. Because if we have an issue and we can't get motel fees, we can't get restaurant fees, what happens to the city when we can't pay our bills?
No, I understand what you're saying. And there's the other, we will also get the other insurances once no casualty and the replacement. I've talked to, I know that was brought up before and we did investigate it. And the financial advisor said he was not aware of that particular insurance to repay the bond. It was, if, I'm sorry, in the circumstances that you're talking about. So if there's a economic collapse of some kind, and so we're not getting that revenue in, we don't have, we're still looking to see about insurance to cover that eventuality. If there is a catastrophe and the buildings fall down or whatever, we have replacement costs on that. So we would be able to continue to pay the bond, we would be able to replace the building, so we would pretty much be even. But the situation that you're talking about is
Well, the hotels might not be there, the restaurants might be there, and so our money coming in would not be there.
agreed. And they were not familiar with that, but we've asked them to look into it.
Is that a piece that we should be considering as we're voting on this?
I don't think we have to consider it now. I think we would have to consider it when the building is done, because that's, I'm sorry, once we start making bond payments.
I guess it'd be a question.
Yeah, Ashley?
Be included, the cost of that be included in the service of the bond,
Right.
in addition to the building.
Yeah.
So the insurance, that be included, or is that going to be something outside the realm of the bond?
I think it wouldn't come in from the bond. It would be part of the debt service. If it was related, or it could be related, it could be part of the debt service because it's to pay the debt if we needed to without funds, or as a separate insurance policy.
You know, there's such thing as business interruption insurance. And it seems like this would fall in that category.
Yeah.
So I guess our recommendation would be to take a look at that and see if that's something we should address in addition to the normal hazard kind of insurance.
Right.
Because we'd be up a creek without a paddle.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
It's interesting because I've read Wade's concern totally differently. My sense of it was like in the in the real estate market, you can't get a loan unless you have insurance.
Right.
So I was just assuming that he was saying that we would need to pay that insurance
Mhm.
in order for the bond to be proper. I like this point too.
Yeah, well, this was brought up,
That's kind of two,
yeah. So,
but both dealing with flood coverage and that sort of thing.
but we have asked about that. They just haven't found that particular thing for us yet.
Good. Well, that's what bond council is for, is to find those things.
Yeah, that and the financial advisor. And we also work with directly with our insurance broker.
Ashley, do you have any comment on that?
I do. So the agenda item that's before us is the agreement with bond counsel. And one of the reasons why we bring in bond counsel is because it's a very specialized area of law. So the actual decision that's before you right now is whether to engage, Courtney's firm in order to answer some of these questions. So I can't give you the definitive answer regarding what insurance the city is purchasing. However, that's why we're bringing on Courtney, because I believe that she can answer Courtney and the financial advisor can answer those questions. Noting that I'm not a bound counsel, I am sure that there are some sort of protections along the lines of what you are discussing that they have considered and they can discuss that with you.
Do we have flood insurance for these two buildings? I mean, the
Not
city
at this
hall.
point.
Okay,
Well, are you talking about the school?
the school and the city hall.
Flood insurance on this building?
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
we have all,
catastrophic insurance. I mean, if something
Yeah.
terrible happens.
Yeah, you'd have to. They require it.
the only thing we have limited insurance on the building as far as replacement. The existing, before we put the roof on and things, there wasn't enough value there for them to offer us anything other than, we can take it away for you if you want.
We're talking about which, the school or
School,
both? Yeah, okay, so we're going to get flood insurance once we
yes,
make it a real building.
yes.
Okay.
And possibly even more, because we're going to be adding value as we go.
Okay,
The value was not there. We have liability coverage. We don't have the replacement or anything.
that's pretty important, especially for the school, because it's a very fragile location there.
But back to this agreement, as I've looked at it, it covers the same thing the earlier agreement did, but it's updated for the actual numbers that we now know and the more detail that we know. So I didn't see it really changing scope so much. Okay.
Are these figures correct for fees, though? Is this the 6 or 7% they're talking about for the 7.5 million and the 4.5 million? Because that doesn't quite seem right.
What page is that on?
It's on the new information we received. It's under fees on the third page.
Let me ask, okay, here it is. The 28.5 and the 35 for the fee, yes.
So that's all they're going to charge us for doing this?
Yes. I believe that's the case. Is that,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a flat fee.
Okay.
I didn't go back and look at the video, but I thought when they mentioned so many points, they were talking about like to place the debt. There's so many with the, not their council, but the bond manager. There's a fee associated with how much debt they put out there. And I thought that was points they were talking about, which is a fraction of a percentage.
I think that's the 6 to 7 is the cost of issuance.
Yeah, that's what I read.
The things that are in there.
Not their fee, not the attorney's fee, the cost of putting the thing together and submitting it.
Oh,
Make
okay.
it their
So
margin.
they're two different numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
These fees are included in the cost of issuance estimate.
I'm remembering another portion that goes to, is it the entity that sells the bonds?
Yes.
Takes another.
The
cut as
marketer,
well?
they market it, they get a fee for that on a percentage of so many points.
Was that the 6 to 7%?
That's included in the 6 to 7%. All of the fees are within the 6 to 7% range that covers everything we need to issue the debt.
Yeah, that sounded like what he meant was that that's the whole cost for us to do this. Yeah.
Okay,
And we won't know until the bonds are purchased. We're going in with an estimate of 4%. And if it comes out in less, then it'll lower that number. If it's a little bit more, it might increase it. But I think that's why they have the range of 6 to 7.
So, and the interest rate on these bonds is about 4%,
The numbers we gave you were estimated on a 4%,
on a 4%.
but we won't know until we sell them.
Okay. Do we want to make a attempt at that one, or? We're just approving a contract, I guess.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that what you're looking for. I move to authorize the city manager and the city attorney to sign the contract with Mesereau Shannon LLP for bond counsel.
second,
Further discussion? Jennifer?
Council McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes,
Councilor Risley,
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay, now we'll move on up to our first resolution, 2204. Chris?
Yes, sir. This authorizes staff to move forward with the borrowing of $4.6 million. And the purpose is that that'll be the first amount that would be used towards the construction of the building. We have anticipated the cost might be closer to 5.5 million. We did not want to borrow the 5.5 million because we were obligated to use that to pay debt service. And the early debt service is going to be mostly interest. So we would be using real borrowed dollars to pay off interest. So the plan is that if there's more money required, we would include it in the bond for the city hall project, city hall police station. We anticipate that will happen probably, we will start the process probably in November, and the bond issue would actually happen in January, February of 2023.
I had a question on your analysis, on the analysis. It says debt service for that amount, meaning the second issue, yeah, would, is estimated at $51,000 and would also come from the class of TLT.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be the debt service on the additional money for the city hall or for the,
No, with the 4 point, let me see, the third paragraph, the 4.6, the debt service is around 240,000.
Mhm,
And that's what we would start out.
mhm,
If we were to borrow another million after that, it would be an additional 51.
mhm.
So it would be about $290,000 a year.
Okay, so the 240 then would come from the bond for the city hall.
No, I'm sorry.
It would come from the whole,
It would come from this,
the TLT.
yes. Yeah, the county TLT fund.
Okay,
The other thing is, we would be putting a million on top of whatever we borrow for city hall, and it would be written to have a different debt service source. Actually, I don't think they care what our debt service source is.
mhm,
They just want to, we're just required to pay the debt service. And we would use those funds to make the payment on that portion of the overall debt.
Okay.
It is confusing, that's why I tried to explain it.
Any other concerns on this? And somebody want to attempt a motion?
Move to adopt resolution 2204 to authorize the initial borrowing for the Cannon Beach Elementary School rejuvenation project.
Second,
And last discussion. Jennifer?
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Council Risley,
yes.
Councilor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Council McCarthy,
Yes,
Mayor Snyder.
Yes. Okay, 2205. This one's a little more confusing.
Yes, sir. This is what's called a reimbursement resolution. This does not put us in a position to borrow any funds. What it does is say that, and tells anybody that might loan us the money, that back on February 1st, we stated that we want to capture past costs and costs between now and then in the loan amount. So we're saying that we want to be reimbursed for the general fund expenditures we have made and will be making. That's all that this does.
So we're just paying the architectural firm for the drawings and things that they did.
Yes, there's actually, I think, $300,000 in this year's budget for design. That's out of the general fund. We would be able to pay the general fund back with this resolution.
It doesn't commit us to that architectural firm, however, does it?
It doesn't, no, we've not started the process for selecting the firm.
Okay,
This has nothing to do with selecting the firm.
I know it's probably a dumb question, but I just needed.
No, it's not. It's not a dumb question at all. No, it doesn't tie us to anything like that.
It just says any monies we spend before we have a bond in place.
Yeah.
We spend out of the general fund. We'll take the funds from the bond and reimburse the city's general fund.
Yes. I don't recall if it required that. I think it's optional on your part as to whether you want to reimburse yourself.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's just our decision. And putting it up front, that that's how we plan to do it.
Right.
this doesn't necessarily mean that we will be able to reimburse the costs that we've already done on the studies for the city hall.
We asked Courtney to look at that, and I think she said the study on the facility plan was eligible.
Okay, because this says no later than 18 months after the later of the date of the expenditure or the date that the project is placed in service, but in no event more than 3 years after the date of the expenditure. So are we bound by certain deadlines as to what we spent and how we can reimburse, when we can reimburse ourselves?
The 3 years could come into play on it. It would depend on when we do the bond issue.
Okay, so the studies, when did we do those studies?
Russ, do you remember when we completed and presented?
I think it was late 18, early 19.
Okay, so we would have to place that bond measure now, right? Or sometime this year?
I don't see us in place before January. There's some ties that you can only do one bond issue, and there's a certain exemption you can take with that.
Okay,
So, and if we can claim it within those rules, we will. And that was the intention.
okay. But we might not be able to, depending on when we actually put
It's
the
possible.
project into date. Okay,
But well, for example, if we do move forward with the design, we'll definitely be able to capture the design.
You know, late 2019 is when we did the facility report.
Okay. Late 22 would be the end of our time.
yeah. So we may miss it by a few months then.
Possible.
Okay, other questions? need a motion.
I move to adopt resolution 22-05 for the purpose of adopting a statement of official intent to reimburse capital expenditures from the proceeds of a borrowing reasonably expected to be entered into by the city.
Second. And last comments? Jennifer?
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Resolution 2206. Bruce?
I'm going to turn this one over to Karen.
Karen?
Counselors. The Matanuska pump station has 3 check valves that are failing. There are 3 pumps at the location, each with a check valve that stops the groundwater from backflowing into the system. That's the purpose of a check valve, is it moves water one direction and prevents groundwater from backflowing into the system. During the recent storms, 2 of those pumps were running at full tilt for the duration of the weather event, and the 3rd pump had to be babysat by a staff person to manually manipulate the pump for those check valves to work and not burn itself out. So the estimated cost to replace these valves are $60,000. This is an immediate need to ensure that the Matanuska wastewater lift station is not at risk of an overflow. This emergency equipment replacement was not budgeted in the fiscal year 21-22 budget. Transfer of funds from the contingency line item to capital outlay will not result in a budget increase in the affected fund. The recommendation tonight is that staff asks for council to adopt resolution 2206, authorizing the intrafund transfer.
I noticed you'd ordered them already, right?
We have not.
Oh, you haven't? I thought I saw it.
We have an estimate for it. And
Conducted emergent, okay.
so the estimate from the company said that they can get those check valves to us immediately.
Ordered replacement swing check valves for Matanuska pump station. That's what's here.
So when we experienced the overflow before, they had a check valve issue at that time. We didn't have the money to replace all check valves. And so we addressed what we could at the time and had maintenance on the rest of it. And this happens to be the 3rd pump that's giving us trouble now.
How many are there?
There's 3 of them out
And
there,
that's it. Good.
almost there.
Yay.
So they've assured you that the valves are available?
Yes, so the company that gave us the estimate so that they can get us the check valves ASAP.
Okay, any other questions? We need a motion.
Well, I move to adopt the resolution 2206 for the purpose of approving increases and decreases to the fiscal year 2021 to 2022 budget by making an intrafund transfer of appropriations.
Seconded.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen.
Jennifer?
Counselor Ogilvy,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Council President Benefield,
Yes.
Counselor Risley,
Yes.
Mayor Stidel.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to 2207.
Rick, do you want to cover this?
This staff report is the consideration of resolution 2207 for the purpose of approving changes to fiscal year 21-22 budget by increasing appropriations in the general fund to allow for a specific purpose grant from the State of Oregon Department of Administrative Services on the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, or CSFRF grant. So in March 25th of 2021, the state invited all cities and counties to complete a survey, identify the priorities for funding opportunity titled the American Rescue Plan, the ARP. These surveys were to be projects that deemed to be necessary for infrastructure resiliency and that had previously been planned or budgeted. If the projects were shovel ready, they would increase the potential for awards. This request had a very short open period of only 6 business days. City staff quickly rallied our current infrastructure resiliency projects and completed a survey for each project. The surveys were submitted on time, and there were 10 projects identified totaling over $30 million. The grant had a name change throughout the next part of the year called the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, or CSFRF. The grant also requests that the award be dedicated to its single project type. So there was some changes from the time we started it to the time that this happened. The grant total award was $360,000. The city-sponsored safety and survival caches sites are a critical element to the resilience of the city of the Cannon Beach, and it's due to the island effects of following a natural disaster. Adding many resources to our cache sites need to be supported and built in infrastructure and utilities. These standalone utilities may support the cache sites and turn them into emergency village shelters. By doing that, they'll be providing electric power, backup alternate power with generators, lighting, security, sanitation, heat, and site development. This type of site development is very, very costly and can take many budget cycles to realize a project of this magnitude. To be awarded a grant this size and the scope of this significant benefit to the safety and survival and the resilience of the community is a pretty big opportunity for us. Staff recommends the council accept this CSFRF grant and vote to amend the budget to support the grant process of $360,000.
Thanks, Rick.
Rick, can you tell us what the benefits are to this? What will this actually, in your own words, do? What will it look like when it's done?
What it's going to look like when it's done is a project that probably would take 10 years to realize. So one of the reasons why these cache sites are in the location they are is because they're in safe ground, but they're also hard to get power to these locations. And without power, a lot of these buildings and the facilities have limitations on what you can do with them. So by adding power to these cache sites, that's the first step of adding heat to these buildings, maintaining them a lot better, putting security cameras and lighting out at the sites. And what it does is it allows you to not only maintain the sites in the future, but it also allows you with simple backup generator power to maintain them when the rest of the city is dark and there's no power at them. So it would be a place that would always be maintained and then continue to be maintained. Plus the site itself, there's not a lot of stuff out there right now that really need with sanitation and other items, and especially security cameras to protect the sites. So the sites themselves won't look that much different than they will now. All of these items that we're adding to this grant are actually utility infrastructure items that are very expensive, but they're usually hidden underneath the ground, or they're lights on light poles that look normal in a community. What it does allow us to is to consider those locations kind of safe areas that we can put more resources in the future as we get them. And even people at the state and the county recognize these sites as locations that they can put other resources that they want to put in this area. So by having an updated infrastructure at these cache sites, you also invite the ability to put other resources that'll serve even a greater community area, even larger than ourselves.
So what does it mean for residents and visitors in an emergency?
It means to them is that you have a safe place that you can go to that you could actually harbor for a period of time. If we were not able to reoccupy the city for whatever reason, the things that we would put there and the site itself would be a place that you could actually say is a safe place with medical, food, water, shelter, and backup generator power with other tools and resources, and sanitation. One thing that we're missing drastically is sanitation more than just a few days. And when you get a lot of people in a small area and there's no sanitation, you lead to dysentery and other really caustic items. So for them, it means to them there's a safe place that's off grid that creates a lot of resiliency to the community. And there's other communities or other areas, residents that are around our area that would end up migrating to our location anyway, due to the geographic island nature of where we are. So it does create a safe harbor for many, many people in this area.
And Rick, aren't you working on getting grants from the state, and I forgot what agency it was, but that would be for, the larger tents for shelter, those kind of things that,
We recently had a visit from the state officials from Health and Human Services that I invited them down here and I gave them a staff ride of the entire area and all of our emergency locations that we've built up over the past few years. And they're looking at not only the island mapping that Dagami and other agencies have put out, but they're also looking at storing some of these costly equipment geographically that'll support region. And so they have looked at those things. And these are things that I also would say would take 10 years. These are $80,000 to $100,000 projects that I would say 10 years of budgeting would also make them realize. But to have them looked at now and something that could possibly happen within the next few years is a pretty big deal to this area.
what they're looking at is a change in the philosophy that rather than having a bunch of tents and things like that in storage that they can go ahead and send someplace, they're starting to recognize they should already be there if we, to be really effective. And by showing that we are taking care of our cast sites and we're making investments in our cast sites, it makes us more likely to be a recipient because we know that we'll be able to store them properly and that sort of thing. As opposed to someone that's not doing this kind of work at their cast sites. So all the things that we're doing move us up the ladder on other considerations because we're being so active. It gets us noticed.
I think it's pretty impressive that staff was able to pull this grant application together in a mere 6 days and of a quality that warranted a $360,000 grant to the city. I have a couple of questions about it, however. One is, there's a lot of reporting required, as there are with most any government grant. And I'm just wondering if you yet started looking at those reporting requirements, how it's going to be done, who's going to do it. And the other part of the question, I think the answer is yes, but it looks to me like a big load. I think L'Oreal and you two probably do most of it. The other thing is there's a time limit on which this monies have to be spent. I think it was only 3 years. So if that's the case, that's a lot to be done in a 3-year time period, and it'll require a real concerted effort. How comfortable are you with the planning and moving ahead with this, that you can meet all those requirements of installation and reporting and handling the financing?
I'd love to answer those in order too. First of all, I want to thank Karen and Jennifer specifically for putting together shovel-ready projects in a 6-day period of time totaling $30 million. That is an incredible feat. What really led to that was honestly the budget committee. The budget committee approving things that they wanted to move forward on and getting them shovel ready so we can take advantage of these opportunities. So let's go back to that and look at those conversations that happened and get us to this point and look at the staff's capability to pull these things off. It's pretty incredible. To answer your next point, I'll be honest with you, this is an intimidating fact. We are almost a year behind this already. This started in March. They approved it late because of all the stuff that's happening back east in DC. And then we had some challenges with the name change and not quite understanding exactly if this was the same grant or did we qualify? And we're bringing it to you now. So I'm already way behind. Secondly, I'll be honest with you, it is an intimidating factor. My next 2 years are going to be completely dedicated to this to get this in because it's that important. It isn't a massive amount of project management time to do this. And Jennifer, myself, and Lori have already had a couple planning meetings and separated some of the duties when it comes to contracts, assistance, along with Ashley's firm, and along with what Lori's responsibility is for getting information back to the state. But my job would be project management and development, and it is big. Luckily, these projects I already kind of had penciled in, and we had them moving forward, but that was just at the bid process. So it's going to be a busy next 2 years, and it's going to be full of these projects, that's for sure.
And I appreciate Mike bringing that up. And I mentioned to you before, and I'll be talking about it during the at the budget committee, is that on top of what everything was going before. Potentially, by the time the budget is approved in July next year, we will have added 25 to $30 million worth of active projects. And so we will be needing some help of some sort. I've already authorized Karen to use engineering companies to pay them, and then we will try to get the money back from the loan to do the applications and things. But the ongoing management and the ongoing reporting requirements, we found after the first loan that we got, we received the loan. And then, Jen, what was it? Was it the application or something that had to be turned in that you and Kelsey had to put all the time in on?
Yeah, each one of them, it's an interesting process with the loans because you have to apply. And then I can't remember what the wording is, like an attempt to apply. Then they invite you to formally apply. So then you do it again. And then you have to meet all these federal requirements. And wastewater makes you do it before they actually give you your money. So it's a stack of paperwork this big that you have to do. And so it is a huge process. And then once you get it, you can't just go up to bid. You have to prepare your documents and then send it back in for them to review. And then when you get your award, you have to send everything back to them to review. So it is a pretty big.
It starts with your letter of intent to apply. That's the first trigger. And then comes your application process.
Oh, that's why I brought it up.
Thank you.
I think it's gonna have to be some staffing increases, or I don't know whether you use consultants for a year or two, but it's gonna take more than this incredible crew can handle, I think. And it's a great blessing, but it's gonna create problems that we maybe hadn't anticipated or budgeted for.
Yeah, and that's why I think I brought this up once before and I plan to continue it again. We don't have any project management staff. That's just been picked up by, 3 or 4 or 5 people, and is an additional duty. But we're gonna have so much, and I'm most concerned with complying with the permit requirements and, turning in the paperwork and all those things. And it's gonna happen during a year where we're also gonna start collecting the prepared food tax, those sort of things. And all of this is possible, but we have to recognize that what we used to do, we were staffed for, and we're not staffed for these additional things. And so we're gonna have to, figure some way. But if we can do it with consultants or something like that, we'll try to do it that way. It's also possible we would need somebody in-house because we're gonna have multiple projects. I mean, Rick's project is gonna require a lot. Everything Karen's got going, so.
A few comments, just on what you were saying is something to look into for Rick is the AmeriCorps works intimately with FEMA. To get an AmeriCorps crew down here in an instant for that kind of help. But you have to plan ahead for those.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Rick does have a team of volunteers behind him to take up some of the make work stuff, the maintenance and all those kinds of things. Our team's more than willing to do that. But the main comment I want to make is I think it was about 12 years ago, we had a discussion in this very room about a cash site, and we were struggling to come up with $30,000 for the first cash site. And that was a flagship program then. Think of what it is now. I mean, when we're putting this kind of funding into it that we already put into it, and now we're adding this grant on top of that. I can tell you, I know of several other mayors who've commented to me that they don't know how we do it. I tell them I have a secret chipmunk in the room, but
Chip.
So I just want to say that this, to have a flagship program that the state is jealous of is amazing.
Yeah, just make sure they get the resources necessary to pull it off.
Yeah, but those conversations are happening at the state level to work with us on these kind of things. So A lot of good stuff happening, but we're gonna have to,
Yeah, and like I said, this is a concern.
Yeah.
But this is, to me, this is a problem I'd like to have more of.
right, yes,
Nice kind of problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have,
I hope what you're doing is maybe videoing a lot of this so that you can tell a story later. Because
Next.
I think a lot of people will look to you for that.
Next week, I'm going to give you guys a rundown of what we've done just last year in emergency management. And I'm going to provide some new photographs and new pictures of, before and now of the past year or so, what you've seen. And I do take a lot of pictures and videos of what we're doing. It's just not as compiled, but one of these days it'll be quite an archive.
good suggestion.
ready to have a motion for this?
Move to adopt resolution 22-07 for the purpose approving changes in the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget by increasing appropriations in the general fund to allow for a specific purpose grant from the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund, CSFRF, and authorize the city manager to sign the grant agreement.
Seconded.
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Council Risley?
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy?
Yes,
Mayor Stidham?
Yes.
thank you, Rick.
Yes, thank you very much, Rick.
Okay, I believe our next item is an appointment of a couple of committees. We have 2 renewals
Yep, and they're just straight across renewals.
straight across. So first one would be for a position in farmer's market, and Bob Lundy has been an amazing volunteer there, so. I need a motion.
Move to renew Bob Lundy to the Farmers Market Committee.
Second?
Jennifer?
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Council Risley?
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy?
Yes,
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Mayor Stidham?
Yes.
thank you, Bob.
And second, for the Tourism and Arts Commission, Greg Friedenberg is renewing. We have a motion there.
Move to renew Greg Swedenberg to the Tourism and Arts Commission.
Second?
Jennifer?
Council Risley?
Yes.
Councilor Ogilvy?
Yes,
Council McCarthy?
Yes.
Council President Benefield?
Yes.
Mayor Stidham?
Yes. That concludes our general meeting. I have a communication or a report that I would like to make is I made a visit with all 5 of the mayors from the county last week. Just to catch up, find out what's going on. We haven't met for quite a while. And most of the time we spent telling stories about the last 2 years. But there was a couple interesting points that were brought up that might come to us as commentary later, as soon as they're written up. I'll wait for that just to get the details. One thing that I found most interesting is that the county is going to be into a sea change of mayors next year. We have 4 that are stepping down. Will not be running again. The only one I'm a little not too confident on my facts is Jay from Seaside, whether he said he was stepping down this year or the following year, 23. I didn't catch that. There was a lot of conversation going on.
So Gearhart's the only one that's.
Gearhart will be the only one with the consistent mayor.
Wow.
We also realized that several of the cities have more than 2 council people also switching. But in that case, they have a lot of incumbents running against somebody. So there could be some dramatic changes in the cities next year. Something just to pay attention to. Not that it affects us a whole lot, but good to know.
One thing when we were looking at the monthly status, I'm not noticing, and this is just communication with the counselors, but any notice about the tree removals? I don't think I've received anything in the last month or two on that.
We'll get that updated. I'm sorry. if it's not in there.
Okay, because usually we get it ahead of time before the time's out.
There's something in here.
There is something in there.
We haven't had it.
Yeah,
Well, there's a
There's
tree
somewhere.
report here.
right, but that tree report is from December, so
Yeah.
you guys, if we were doing tree removals in the right of way in January, you would get that right in January.
Right.
So I don't believe we've done any in January.
I think Trevor did one just this week, but our arborist had a bad accident, and so
Uh-oh.
he's recovering. And so Joe Baldwin is assisting, while Jeff Gerhart is out. We really haven't had anything until Trevor had one this week.
Okay.
Okay, anything for good of the order?
I have a question of, what's the status of getting a code enforcement officer?
We're currently still in the background position and we're all taking the code enforcement complaints as they come in.
So you say in the background, so do you have somebody that, an applicant that you're looking at?
Yeah, we do have.
Get background on.
And we're just to the background. So Lieutenant and Joe Bowman are working on the background.
Okay.
That's police speak, right?
The background?
The police speak is, we're working in the background.
Yeah.
I had one question here on the planning director is working with the city of Gerhart for an intergovernmental agreement to allow for building services support. So does that mean that our building inspector would be helping Gerhart too, or what did that mean?
They don't have somebody right now.
Okay,
So they've asked for some assistance. We've had similar arrangements with Manzanita and Astoria.
yes.
And so that's what that's about.
Okay, and then the other question I had to do with the planning director meeting with the Oregon Department of State Lands Aquatic Resource Planner. Jevra Brown on wetlands, wetland inventories, and WLUN process. What is that about?
Rob, I don't know, but I'll get you an email tomorrow on what that is.
Okay,
And I had a question on that same list. Planning director continues to work with the finance director, public works director, and applicant on a proposed reimbursement district for extending utilities along Ecola Park Road.
That's for a proposed
Please, Karen, thanks.
new home that's going to be built, and per our code, the developer homeowner who's building is required to extend their utilities from the closest point. And on Ecola Park Road, we don't have any utilities. So the water would be coming from 6th Street and the sewer would be coming from 5th. And because this homeowner is the first person to extend the utilities on that street, she's asked for a reimbursement district to be set up so that the other vacant lots that exist there today, when they build in the future, she has an opportunity to have some reimbursement for expenditures.
So it's kind of the opposite of a local improvement district in a sense. I mean, it's almost setting up her own local improvement district then in a way.
Yeah, and so it's still in the application process. She's going through everything to get a complete application that goes to Lori and I for review. And so we're still in the throes of that. And so I think that's what Jeff's bullet item was for that.
So you're extending water and sewer up Ecola Creek Road?
Yes, and because that's an area that there's wetlands, ODOT owns that strip of Ecola Park Road. So ODOT has to review it. And then there'll be a wetlands report that she has to provide. That's part of her application. And so we're in that process right now.
Goodness.
that's a pretty hefty bill to bring your own stuff in.
Doesn't pay to be first sometimes.
No.
Yes, Bruce, were you going to be able to update us on being able to notify restaurants and affected members for the prepared food tax?
Yes. Yeah, it'll probably be February 15th. We did not make February 1st. We got a new employee in the finance department. And there were just some other issues that came up that we weren't able to get that, including trying to get the tech survey. We have a contract now with somebody that's going to go ahead, visit each one of the businesses. So we will get the information out to the property owners, or to the businesses by February.
And I just wanted to ask the council, is this something that any of us want to see ahead of time before the letter goes out?
Yes, might not be a bad idea.
You can put it on the meeting beginning of March.
Ashley?
Yes, I have an item for the good of the order. Is now the right time, Mayor?
Oh, hang on just a second.
Just a second, Ashley, if I could. Is it possible you'd have something before then?
If you would explain to me exactly what it is you want to provide them. For example, we're ready to tell them, this is the forms, this is the kind of thing that you're going to need to do your reporting. We're going to have somebody come out and look at your systems. But beyond that, I thought the Deanna's request, I think we're kind of going from that, was
That's absolutely fine with me. I don't have a separate agenda from what it is I believe that you're doing. I just wanted to know if we could get a look at it before you send it out to the businesses.
if it's those sort of things, then yes, absolutely. And we will send it to you first. But I just want to make sure that when we take the time and you take the time to wait, when we give it to you, you don't say, well, you forgot 4 things that we would have wanted to have. So if you know what those are, then we can try to go ahead and make sure that they're covered.
Okay,
So if anybody wants to provide any direction on that.
I would be happy to send something that at least I feel
Okay, good.
is what I would expect the city to be
Okay, good.
providing the information. I don't have the exact whatever it is.
Okay.
We are really close. I mean, we do have finance finished all their forms. Ashley's going to go over some stuff with you guys that we need clarifications for. And so we're very close in having a document put together that kind of walks through all the steps and what to expect.
And that's pretty much where I'm headed with this. What I wanted to ask was, or say is that I don't feel that we would need to wait for a separate meeting for myself personally. I just wanted to be able to get a look at it.
Oh, no, we definitely, we can get it, before. I was just thinking that if you wanted to comment, then we would need to have the meeting for that.
Okay,
And what we'll try to do, Brandon, is get what we have out the next day or two. And then maybe you can comment on the 8th.
okay.
And if you can get us, well, I think you felt it was covered with what Jen just said, what your issues were, correct?
Yes, I'll send in a separate email.
Okay, all right.
It'll be short, and I assume that the letter that we're sending out to the businesses isn't anything lengthy.
I haven't decided if there's going to be 1 or 2 letters. My thought was we would do one separate to deal with the potential grant for the tech equipment.
I completely agree with that
Yeah,
statement.
then another one which covers the kind of things, this is what to expect.
Yes.
So potentially I'm looking at 2 letters. And we want to try to get the letter out now that we have the contract within a week to all of the businesses, because we want to avoid a situation where somebody runs out and buys equipment now when they can get it evaluated at a cost to see what it is that they need. But we're trying to stay far enough ahead for folks that they don't fall into that trap.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no, thank you.
I guess the question is, how sure are we that we are going to be able to go ahead with the tax? We have some litigation pending.
Ashley, do you want to address that? I keep looking at the cameras over there, but I look at you up here because you're closer.
Yeah, I mean, the litigation is still pending. I sent an email out to council this week with a little bit of an update. Not much has changed since I last updated you, but I'm pretty confident that the challenge is going to be dismissed through the motion to dismiss. I can't tell you with 100% certainty until that happens. And the petitioners requested one more week to respond to the motion to dismiss, and the county granted that. So again, it's my expectation that that will be resolved in the county's favor very soon here. So my advice to the city is to move forward with preparing for implementation of the prepared food tax. So along those lines, I do have a matter for the good of order regarding the prepared food tax. Mayor, is it okay if I move into that?
Please, go ahead.
Okay. So staff is preparing for implementation and working through those materials, and several questions came to me, I believe last week or the week before, essentially, how should we be applying these certain aspects of the prepared food tax? I went through and answered those based on the language that's currently in the code, and then I forwarded that information along to council. I did get feedback from two different counselors separately on one item, so I wanted to bring it to your attention. So that item was, if a caterer is located in the city of Cannon Beach or does a gig or caters for somebody within Cannon Beach, both of those situations are covered by the prepared food tax. So a caterer, either catering or event inside Cannon Beach, would pay the prepared food tax, or those who purchase food from them would pay the prepared food tax. And a caterer from Cannon Beach who does an event outside the city limits of Cannon Beach, those individuals buying food would also pay the prepared food tax. So that is the language in the city code. Specifically, the tax is imposed on the purchase of food from a caterer located within the city or for an event located within the city. So if the caterer is located in the city, they're paying the tax. If the event is in the city, those folks are also paying the tax. So the feedback I got is, is this what the council wants? Is that what we intended? So I went back and I looked at how the other jurisdictions are handling this. In both Ashland and Yachats, it is only, the prepared food tax is only imposed on caterers for an event located within the city. So if a Cannon Beach caterer or an Ashland caterer caters an event in Medford, the tax would not be imposed on that event. I went back to our meeting notes to figure out which discussion happened and why we amended our language. And I found a conversation from this June. It was when Emily was at the meeting. I was not there, but I went back and looked at the minutes. And then she did a follow-up email to the council clarifying that the purchase of food from a caterer is taxed whether the event or the caterer is located within the city. And then asked for feedback from the council if that's how we wanted to move forward. And I believe that she clarified she was changing that language, and the council needed to let her know if they did not want to go forward with that language. So that's the last note I have on how and why that language was changed from the other jurisdictions. So my question to you, council, because it came up from two different members of council, is do we want to amend the language, or are we happy with the language as is? And an amendment process would be just an ordinance, how we typically do ordinance. We would need 7 days notice. We would have, 2 separate votes, and then it would be effective, if passed, it would be effective 30 days from the date of that second vote. So my question for you, is this something that we want to talk about further? Do you want me to bring back an ordinance making this change?
I'm happy with the way it is.
Since I was one of the respondents that noted that, I have a different opinion. So I'd like to see it change.
So if The caterer serves someone in Arch Cape. You think they should be exempt?
I do.
Mhm.
I was also the other one. If somebody is having a wedding in Arch Cape, and they call for bids from 3 or 4 caterers, one of them happens to be from Cannon Beach. The one in Cannon Beach is put in a situation where they have to charge more because of the tax. Or the tax is costing the wedding more. So that's an unfair situation for competition. That's why that just, so anything out of the city doesn't get taxed. And even if they cook it here and take it there, it should not get taxed.
I guess I looked at the point of sale. And they made the point of sale is where they prepare it.
I can see the argument. In that instance, I just felt the line needed to be drawn somewhere, and it just doesn't seem right to me. And the fact that Ashland and both Yachats have the same opinion, I guess, just makes me feel that much stronger about it.
So I think part of the conversation, just remembering it now, is that I think the conversation we had would it disincentivize events located within Cannon Beach? So if you have an event located in Cannon Beach catered by the same caterer, you would pay the tax. But if you go, slightly outside the jurisdictional boundaries, you would not.
Correct.
So this doesn't have to be decided tonight. I mostly was looking for direction if you wanted me to bring back an ordinance for your consideration on this issue.
I think you should, and then we can really get down to the details through the ordinance discussion.
I think there were 1 or 2 other aspects of the ordinance that we just need to do some cleanup on. I think there was a citation that was incorrect, so we'll bring back that as well.
Okay.
That's all I have. Thanks, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thanks, Ashley.
Can I just mention, I did check, there were no right-of-way trees removed in January. So
Okay,
I checked I checked our records and Trevor sent me a text, so.
thank you.
That concludes our meeting.
No, I got a couple good news things for good of the order. One is that Windsor Engineering, who is doing our resiliency plan, they submitted the Cannon Beach Resiliency Plan to the American Council of Engineering Companies. And the city and Windsor Engineering received an award at a recent award event. So, and Windsor also was awarded for another project that they did. So they're good engineering companies, and they do a great job for us, but there was recognition about the importance of that project. Timing is everything, and Karen and I have a call with Business Oregon on Friday about that project. And the agenda says for this item, recommend approval of Cannon Beach's application for, and I think it's 3.2 million?
Right.
$3.2 million.
Board of Business Oregon. So we
Right.
got from the board.
So we're going to open with this, saying that there was an award for the project. And they were very receptive the first time, which is Karen said, first time you just say, can we apply? And then they say yes or no. They were very impressed with the concept of the project. Now we're at the point that there's a staff recommendation to fund us for that. And then the second one is even more fun. I sent something to you today, but the Pan Wizards Steel Orchestra, which is high school, a bunch of high school kids that have been playing steel drums since they were like in 6th grade. They said, well, we're coming through. We would like to come around if anybody wants to have us perform. And I think Jennifer was the first one that got to the guy. And they said, we will come and we will give you a priority time. So they're looking for like late afternoon, early evening on a Saturday or a Friday or Saturday, which is, prime time for them to come in. It'll be tentatively right now between June 25th and the 28th. There's no charge. They do hope that they can get donations, but, and I have to go measure the band shell to make sure they can all fit up there. But the guy had come through, he played steel drums, or saw somebody with steel drums here back in the day when they did the haystack
program?
the haystack program. And he was here last year and looked at our band shell and said, man, that would be great for our folks if we could get to come here. So there's a lot working in that way, but I just thought it was very cool that we could start saying, hey, come on down, we do this stuff. So I'm excited. Can you tell I'm excited? Yeah. Anyway, so some cool stuff happening.
How old are the kids?
High school.
High school.
They used to have, I don't know if they still do in Seaside or not, but they used to have a drum corps program right at the beginning. I think it's around the 4th of July weekend. They had a big drum corps presentation. They had a bunch of drum corps outfits from all over the country would come and perform at the Broadway Park Stadium. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
During the haystack program, they had some folks from Africa come up and teach people how to make their drum.
Ooh.
And they were all out in the yard, Makus Park, basically, making their drums for like 3 days. And that entails hammering on drums all day long. It was a weirdest sound because it just kind of echoed that whole end of town. And when they did their concert in the gym with 50 steel drums,
Ooh.
the whole building was
I
just
imagine.
crazy. So, yeah, that'd be so much fun.
And this will be 32 drums.
Yeah. That's a fun sound.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's all I have, sir. Thank you.
then we are adjourned. Thank you all.